One young woman made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She was born into wealth and luxury, but she chose to walk away from it all to see what life looked like on the other side. She swapped places with someone no one expected, someone her family had always overlooked. And when her family discovered what she had done, their reaction changed everything. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into this story. In the beautiful city of Lagos, inside a tall white mansion surrounded by tall gates and security guards, lived a family that many people admired from a distance. The Ademi family. They were known across the city for their wealth, their influence, and their business empire that stretched across several states. Mr. Ademi owned one of the largest import and export companies in the country. His wife, Mrs. Ademi, was a well-known socialite who attended every important event in the city. Together, they had built a life that many people could only dream about. They had 3 children. The eldest was a son named Kunal who worked closely with his father in the family business. The second child was a daughter named Bisola who was studying abroad, and the youngest was another daughter named Amara. Amara was 23 years old. She had smooth, dark skin, bright eyes, and a quiet beauty that did not need much decoration. She was intelligent, kind, and thoughtful. But there was something about Amara that her family never fully understood. She was not like them. While her brother Kunal loved talking about business deals and profits, Amara preferred reading books about people and their struggles. While her mother enjoyed expensive parties and designer clothes, Amara felt more comfortable in simple dresses. While her sister Bisola posted pictures of luxury trips on social media, Amara quietly wondered what life was like for people who had nothing. Her family often said she was too soft, too emotional, too different. But Amara did not see it that way. She simply wanted to understand the world beyond the tall gates that surrounded her home. One afternoon, Amara sat quietly in the large living room of the mansion. The room was decorated with expensive furniture, golden lights, and paintings that cost more than most people earned in a year. But Amara was not looking at any of those things. She was looking at a young woman who was cleaning the floor near the staircase. Her name was Ngozi. Ngozi was the housemaid. She was 24 years old, just 1 year older than Amara. She had come to work for the Ademi family 3 years earlier after her father passed away and her mother became too sick to work. Ngozi needed money to pay for her mother's medical treatment and to support her 2 younger siblings who were still in school. Every morning, Ngozi woke up before everyone else in the house. She cleaned the floors, washed the dishes, prepared breakfast, and did whatever the family asked her to do. She worked quietly and never complained. But Amara had noticed something about Ngozi over the years. Despite the hard work and the long hours, Ngozi always smiled. She greeted everyone kindly. She treated every task with care. And she never looked at the family with bitterness, even though her life was so different from theirs. Amara stood up slowly and walked toward Ngozi. Ngozi looked up and quickly stood straight. "Good afternoon, Ma," Ngozi said respectfully. Amara smiled gently. "You do not have to call me Ma," she said. Ngozi hesitated. "But you are the daughter of the house." Amara shook her head. "We are both just people," she replied. Ngozi did not know how to respond, so she simply smiled and continued cleaning. But Amara did not walk away. Instead, she sat down on the stairs and watched Ngozi work. After a few moments, Amara spoke again. "Ngozi, can I ask you something?" Ngozi paused and looked at her. "Yes, Ma, how do you stay so happy even when life is hard?" Ngozi blinked in surprise. She had never expected such a question from someone like Amara. She thought carefully before answering. "I do not think I am always happy, Ma," she said honestly. "But I try to be grateful for what I have, even if it is small." Amara listened quietly. Ngozi continued. "My mother is still alive. My siblings are still in school. I have work. I have food. Those things are enough to make me smile." Amara felt something shift inside her chest. Here was someone who had so little, yet she spoke with so much gratitude. Meanwhile, Amara had everything, but she often felt empty. That evening, Amara could not stop thinking about Ngozi. She thought about the difference between their lives. She thought about how Ngozi worked so hard every day while she, Amara, had never truly struggled for anything. And slowly an idea began to form in her mind. It was a strange idea, a bold idea, but once it appeared, she could not let it go. What if I swapped places with Ngozi? What if I lived her life for a while and she lived mine? Amara sat on her bed that night staring at the ceiling. The idea felt crazy. Her family would never agree to it. Society would never understand it. But something deep inside her wanted to know what it felt like to live without wealth, without privilege, without the comfort she had always known. She wanted to see the world the way Ngozi saw it. She wanted to understand what it truly meant to struggle, to work, to survive. The next morning, Amara went to find Ngozi. She found her in the kitchen preparing breakfast. "Ngozi," Amara said quietly, "can we talk?" Ngozi turned around, surprised. "Of course, Ma." Amara took a deep breath. I have something to ask you, and I know it will sound strange. Ngozi listened carefully. I want us to swap places, Amara said. Ngozi froze. Swap places, she repeated. Yes, Amara said. I want to live as you live. I want to work as you work. And I want you to live as I live, for a little while. Ngozi stared at her in complete shock. Ma, I do not understand. Why would you want to do that? Because I want to know what your life is really like, Amara replied honestly. I want to understand what it means to live without all of this. She gestured around the large kitchen. Ngozi shook her head slowly. But your family will never allow it. I know, Amara said. That is why we will not tell them. Ngozi's eyes widened. You want to do this in secret? Yes, Amara said firmly, just for a few weeks. You will pretend to be me, and I will pretend to be you. Ngozi felt her heart racing. This was the most unusual thing anyone had ever asked her to do. But as she looked into Amara's eyes, she saw something genuine there, something honest. Amara was not joking. She truly wanted to do this. After a long silence, Ngozi finally spoke. If we do this, Ma, and your family finds out, I will lose my job. Amara reached out and held Ngozi's hand gently. I will not let that happen, she said. I promise. Ngozi looked down at their hands. One was soft and well cared for. The other was rough from years of hard work. She took a deep breath. All right, she said quietly. I will do it. And so the plan began. Over the next few days, Amara and Ngozi prepared carefully. Amara taught Ngozi how to speak the way she spoke, how to carry herself with confidence, how to respond to her family's questions. Ngozi taught Amara how to clean properly, how to cook the meals the family liked, how to move quietly through the house without drawing attention. They practiced in secret, late at night when everyone else was asleep. And finally, the day came when they decided to make the swap. That morning, Amara woke up early and dressed in Ngozi's simple uniform. She tied her hair back the way Ngozi always did. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back at her. Meanwhile, in another room, Ngozi put on one of Amara's expensive dresses. She looked at herself nervously. The dress felt strange on her body. Too soft, too beautiful. She did not feel like herself. But when Amara came to see her, she smiled. You look perfect, Amara said. Ngozi looked at Amara in the maid's uniform and shook her head in disbelief. I still cannot believe we are doing this. Amara smiled. Neither can I, and just like that, the swap began. Amara stepped into Ngozi's role as the housemaid. Ngozi stepped into Amara's role as the daughter of the house. At first, everything felt strange and uncomfortable. Amara's hands were not used to scrubbing floors. Her back ached from bending over to clean. Her fingers became sore from washing dishes. She had never realized how much work Ngozi did every single day. By the end of the first day, Amara's entire body hurt. She sat alone in the small room that belonged to Ngozi, a room she had never entered before. It was tiny. There was only a small bed, a wooden chair, and a single window. There was no air conditioning, no television, no luxury, just four walls and silence. Amara lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in her life, she felt what it was like to be truly tired. Not tired from shopping or attending events, but tired from working hard all day long, tired from serving others, tired from being invisible. Meanwhile, Ngozi was experiencing something completely different. She sat in Amara's large bedroom, surrounded by soft pillows, beautiful curtains, and everything she had ever dreamed of. But instead of feeling happy, she felt nervous. She was afraid of making a mistake, afraid of being discovered, afraid that the family would realize she was not really Amara. That evening, during dinner, the family sat together at the long dining table. Mr. Ademi sat at the head of the table. Mrs. Ademi sat beside him. Kunal sat across from Ngozi, who was pretending to be Amara. Ngozi kept her head slightly down, trying not to draw too much attention, but Mrs. Ademi noticed. Amara, her mother, said, You are very quiet today. Is everything all right? Ngozi's heart jumped. She looked up slowly and forced a small smile. Yes, Mama, I am just tired. Mrs. Ademi raised an eyebrow. Tired? From what? You have been in your room all day. Ngozi hesitated. She did not know how to answer. Just thinking, Mama, she said carefully. Mrs. Ademi studied her for a moment, then turned back to her food. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Amara was washing the dishes. Her hands were wet and slippery. She had already broken one plate by accident, and she was trying hard not to break another. She heard laughter coming from the dining room. It was her family. They were talking and enjoying their meal, completely unaware that she was standing just a few feet away, washing their plates. For the first time, Amara realized something painful. In this role, she was invisible to them. Days passed, then weeks. Amara continued working as the maid. She woke up early every morning. She cleaned the floors, washed the clothes, and prepared the meals. She did everything Ngozi used to do. And with each passing day, she learned something new. She learned that hard work was exhausting. She learned that being invisible hurt. She learned that her family rarely said thank you to the people who served them. She also learned that Ngozi's life was much harder than she had ever imagined. One afternoon, while Amara was cleaning the hallway, she overheard a conversation between her mother and her brother Kunnal. "I do not know what is wrong with that maid," Mrs. Adami said. "She is slower than usual. Maybe we should replace her." Amara froze. She realized her mother was talking about her. Kunnal shrugged. "She is just a maid, Mama. If she cannot do the job, then find someone else." Amara's chest tightened. She had lived in this house her entire life, but now, hearing her own family talk about replacing her so easily, she felt a deep sadness. She realized that to them, the maid was not a person. She was just a worker, someone who could be replaced. That night, Amara sat alone in Ngozi's small room. Tears filled her eyes. She had wanted to understand what Ngozi's life was like, and now she did. It was a life of hard work, little rest, and even less respect. Meanwhile, Ngozi was learning something different. She had been living as Amara for weeks now, and slowly she was beginning to see the other side of wealth. Yes, the family had money. Yes, they lived in comfort. But Ngozi also noticed the emptiness. She noticed that Mr. Adami was always busy and rarely spent time with his children. She noticed that Mrs. Adami cared more about her reputation than her family's happiness. She noticed that Kunnal was proud and often unkind to the workers. One evening, Ngozi was sitting in the living room when Mrs. Adami approached her. Amara, her mother, said, "I have been thinking. It is time you start attending more social events with me. You need to be seen. You need to build connections." Ngozi looked up. "But Mama, I do not really enjoy those events." Mrs. Adami frowned. "That does not matter. You are an Adami. You have a responsibility." Ngozi felt a heaviness in her chest. She realized that even in wealth there was pressure. There were expectations. There was a role to play. And sometimes that role felt like a cage. 1 month after the swap began, something unexpected happened. Amara was cleaning the living room when she accidentally knocked over a very expensive vase. The vase fell to the floor and shattered into pieces. Amara gasped and quickly bent down to pick up the pieces. But before she could clean it up, Mrs. Adami walked into the room. "What happened here?" Mrs. Adami asked sharply. Amara stood up slowly. "I am sorry, Ma. I accidentally knocked over the vase." Mrs. Adami's face became tight with anger. "Do you know how much that vase cost? Do you have any idea?" Amara lowered her head. "I am very sorry, Ma. It was an accident." Mrs. Adami stepped closer. "An accident?" she repeated. "That vase was brought all the way from Italy. It cost more than your entire year's salary." Amara felt her throat tight. She wanted to say something, but she knew that in this role she had no voice. "I will pay for it, Ma," Amara said quietly. Mrs. Adami laughed bitterly. "Pay for it? With what money? You can barely take care of yourself." Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. "I am truly sorry, Ma," she said again. Mrs. Adami shook her head in frustration. "You are lucky I do not send you away right now. Just clean this up and get out of my sight." Amara bent down and began picking up the pieces of the broken vase. Her hands were shaking. She had never been spoken to like that before, and the worst part was that the person speaking to her was her own mother. Later that evening, Ngozi found Amara sitting alone in the small room. She could see that Amara had been crying. "What happened?" Ngozi asked gently. Amara wiped her eyes. "I broke a vase. And my mother," she paused. "She spoke to me in a way I have never heard before." Ngozi sat down beside her. "I am sorry," she said softly. Amara shook her head. "Do not apologize. This is what you experience every day, is it not?" Ngozi nodded slowly. "Yes, but you get used to it." Amara looked at her with sadness. No one should have to get used to being treated that way. For the first time since the swap began, Amara truly understood the weight Ngozi had been carrying all these years, and it broke her heart. A few days later, something else happened that changed everything. Mr. Adami called a family meeting. Everyone gathered in the living room. Ngozi sat nervously, pretending to be Amara. Kunnal sat beside her. Mrs. Adami sat across from them. Mr. Adami stood in front of them with a serious expression. "I have made an important decision," he said. "Kunnal, you will take over the branch office in Abuja next month." Kunnal smiled proudly. "Thank you, father." Then Mr. Adami turned to Ngozi. "And Amara," he said, "I have arranged for you to marry the son of my business partner, Mr. Okafor." Ngozi's heart dropped. "Marry?" she repeated. "Yes," Mr. Adami said. "It is a good match. It will strengthen our business ties. The wedding will take place in 3 months. Ngozi felt panic rising in her chest. "But father, she began. Mr. Adami raised his hand. "This is not a discussion, Amara. It is already decided." Ngozi looked around the room. Mrs. Adami was nodding in agreement. Kunnal looked uninterested. No one was asking how she felt. No one cared. That night, Ngozi went to find Amara. She was trembling. "We have to stop this," Ngozi said urgently. "Your father wants me to marry someone I do not even know." Amara's face went pale. "What?" Ngozi explained everything. Amara felt her world spinning. She had not expected things to go this far. "We have to tell them the truth," Ngozi said. "We have to end this now." Amara nodded slowly. "You are right. It is time." The next morning, Amara and Ngozi stood together in front of the family. Mr. Ademi, Mrs. Ademi, and Cunnel were all sitting in the living room. They looked confused. "Why are both of you standing there?" Mrs. Ademi asked. Amara took a deep breath. "Because we have something to tell you." Mr. Ademi frowned. "What is going on?" Amara stepped forward. "Father, Mother, I need to confess something. For the past month, Ngozi and I have swapped places." The room fell completely silent. "What did you just say?" Mr. Ademi asked slowly. Amara spoke clearly. "I have been living as the housemaid, and Ngozi has been living as me." Mrs. Ademi stood up quickly. "That is impossible." Amara shook her head. "It is the truth. I wanted to understand what life was like for someone like Ngozi, so we switched roles." Cunnel laughed in disbelief. "You are joking." Ngozi stepped forward nervously. "It is true, sir. I am not Amara. I am Ngozi." Mrs. Ademi's face turned red with anger. "How dare you?" she shouted at Ngozi. "How dare you pretend to be my daughter?" Amara quickly stepped between them. "Do not blame her, Mama. This was my idea." Mr. Ademi stood up slowly. His face was hard and unreadable. "You did this?" he asked Amara. "Yes, Father," Amara replied. Mr. Ademi stared at her for a long moment. Then he asked a question that surprised everyone. "Why?" Amara's voice was steady. "Because I wanted to see the world the way Ngozi sees it. I wanted to understand what it feels like to work hard and be invisible. I wanted to know if we as a family truly see the people who serve us." The room was quiet. "Do we, Father?" Amara asked. "Do we see them as people, or do we see them as tools?" Mr. Ademi did not answer immediately. Mrs. Ademi sat back down, her face filled with shock and confusion. Cunnel looked uncomfortable. Amara continued. "For 1 month I scrubbed floors, I washed dishes, I cleaned rooms, and I realized something painful. In this house the maid is not treated like a human being. She is treated like she does not matter." Ngozi stood silently, tears filling her eyes. Amara turned to her parents. "Ngozi works harder than any of us. She wakes up before the sun rises. She goes to bed after we are all asleep. She does everything we ask without complaint, and yet we have never once thanked her." Mrs. Ademi looked down. Amara's voice softened. "I am not saying this to shame you. I am saying this because I love this family and I want us to be better." Mr. Ademi finally spoke. His voice was quiet. "What do you want us to do, Amara?" Amara looked at Ngozi, then back at her father. "I want us to treat people with respect. I want us to see them. I want us to value them." There was a long silence. Then slowly Mr. Ademi walked toward Ngozi. Ngozi stepped back nervously, but Mr. Ademi raised his hand gently. "I owe you an apology," he said. Ngozi's eyes widened in shock. "Sir." Mr. Ademi continued. "You have worked in this house for 3 years, and I have never once asked you how you were doing. I have never once thanked you." Ngozi did not know what to say. Mr. Ademi turned to his wife. "We have been blind," he said. Mrs. Ademi's eyes were now filled with tears. She stood up slowly and walked toward Ngozi. "I am sorry," she said quietly. Ngozi could not hold back her tears any longer. She cried. And for the first time, Mrs. Ademi reached out and hugged her. The room was filled with emotion. Even Cunnel, who had always been proud, looked uncomfortable and ashamed. After a long moment, Mr. Ademi turned to Amara. "You have taught us something important today," he said. Amara smiled softly. In the days that followed, things began to change in the Ademi household. Ngozi was no longer treated as just a maid. She was invited to sit with the family during meals. She was asked about her day. She was thanked for her work. Mrs. Ademi personally visited Ngozi's mother in the hospital and paid for her full medical treatment. Mr. Ademi also arranged for Ngozi's siblings to attend a good school with full scholarships. And the arranged marriage, Mr. Ademi canceled it. He told Mr. Akafor that his daughter would only marry someone she loved. One evening a few weeks later, Amara and Ngozi sat together in the garden. The sun was setting and the air was cool. "Thank you," Ngozi said quietly. Amara looked at her. "For what?" "For changing my life," Ngozi replied. Amara shook her head. "You changed mine too." They both smiled. Ngozi looked at the mansion behind them. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Swapping places, Amara thought for a moment. Then she shook her head. "No. It was the best decision I ever made." Months later, the Ademi family held a small ceremony. It was not a party for business or social status. It was a celebration for Ngozi. Mr. Ademi stood in front of everyone and made an announcement. "Ngozi has been part of this family for years," he said, "but today we want to make it official. From this day forward, Ngozi is not just our worker, she is our family." Ngozi cried tears of joy. Amara hugged her tightly. Mrs. Ademi smiled with genuine warmth. Even Cunnel clapped respectfully. The family had changed. And it all started because one young woman chose to see the world through someone else's eyes. My wonderful viewers, sometimes we need to walk in someone else's shoes to truly understand their journey. What do you think about Amara's decision? Was it brave or foolish? Share your thoughts in the comments section. I would really love to read from you. A more interesting story will be coming in a few days. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss it. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching.